Hey guys, this is What If Tatsumi was Ghost Rider Part 1. I was just say the spirit of vengeance is going to be cracking some back. Let's dive right into this fanfiction. So, disclaimer, before I get into this fanfiction too much, since it's basically a simple story, Ghost Rider mixed with Tatsumi from Akame Ga Kill, simple story. But I am going to be taking a break from Deku What Ifs or My Hero What Ifs because I have so many Deku What Ifs that I have never finished and have just been one-shots. So I'm going to at least try to finish 3 to 4 of my Deku What If stories, finish them, for real, give them a ending before I reach 10k, or at least by the end of my junior year, before 2025. So I want to at least finish about 3 What If series of my Hero universe. And I also want to drop a lot more obscured anime what ifs. So if you guys have an anime recommendation or an anime you want me to make a what if on, like Attack on Titans, a Naruto, I will not be doing any Dragon Ball Z what ifs though, because me personally, I'm not a big fan of Dragon Ball Z. I'm sorry. Don't crash me in the comments. I'm really not a big fan of Dragon Ball Z, bro. It's so hyped up to a point where I don't even think it's enjoyable to watch anymore, because people literally don't even care about Goku as a character anymore. They just say, "Oh shit, can he be Goku though?" Like, bro, isn't Goku supposed to be like a hero, a good person? Why would he be beating the shit out of Superman? Ain't Superman a hero? Like, bro, that makes no damn sense, bro. Like, bro, that's like the Joker befriending, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog, bro. He's not gonna do that. It's a very unrealistic fight or predicament. But we're gonna be diving right into this fan fiction. What if Tatsumi from Akame Ga Kill was cursed with the spirit of vengeance? Let's dive right into this fan fiction. You start the story off with Tatsumi. Eventually I was gonna make Tatsumi a circus traveler, but to put it honest, Tatsumi's character has to be the same. The only real thing that changes is his involvement with the devil, and how his involvement with Mephisto, of all people, or some sort of demonic presence, would have brought him to the timeline of him obtaining the spirit of vengeance. We can switch back into the past before Tatsumi's birth, as we can switch to Mephisto basically cursing humans throughout existence and throughout time to being the spirit of vengeance. And eventually, one of the spirit of vengeance would have been taken down by a mythical, type of, imperial arms. As we can switch back to present time, as we can switch to Tatsumi waking up one day from a ghoulish nightmare from some sort of creature yelling out his name, saying that he is the next to be chosen. He will sign his soul. As Tatsumi wakes up and is confused as he walks out, and he basically sees his father. As his father, in his continuity, is a little bit more closer to him, and they are basically training. His father is actually the swordsman in this story, actually, as they grow up, as Tatsumi's mother is long gone, and Tatsumi does actually have siblings, or had blood-like siblings, but they're all dead. As Tatsumi would have just been trained with his father. Now, with his father being this universe's version of the swordsman that taught Tatsumi sword fight, he would have been super proficient in sword fighting a little bit more earlier on and a little bit more perfected with it, but not as good as anybody from Night Raid at his level just yet. But Tatsumi always had a fascination with basically fun, having a thrill of adrenaline, like fighting or driving off of a cliff with a horse or jumping over rivers or other things like just that. Basically, stunt deviling was literally his peak of childhood. He threw himself in dire situations that would probably kill a kid if he wasn't lucky. He had so much luck when he was growing up that he literally ran into ongoing traffic with carts just to feel that adrenaline rush, as people almost ran him over as a kid. During this time, eventually we could switch to Tatsumi right before the village would have been going poor, and eventually he would have to go on to find money for his family. He would eventually come to find his father being very sickly. Him praying to anybody, to any god that could possibly help him, could possibly cure his father of this illness. But eventually, after Tatsumi would have been praying at a shrine, he would have been walking back home, as he would have been pretty much approached by a man in all black trench coat, some sort of shades on his eyes, trying to hide his eye color, like he had something to hide. Tatsumi would have asked him, "Who are you? Are you an outsider?" As the man would have said, "Well, to you, I might be your friend. I've heard about you, the grapevine." As he would have been confused, Tatsumi going on, "What do you mean, the grapevine?" The man would have said that, "I know about your father. I know that he's very sick. Let me make you a deal. You sign this paper, and I'll make your father as healthy as an ox. I'll cure him of his illness. He might live another day." As Tatsumi would have been desperate at this point, and it would have been months of him praying to any god he could possibly pray to help his father, since all the medicine and fluids and not fluids, but elixirs they were making in the village wouldn't be able to heal him in the slightest. It would only ease his pain. As he would eventually grab the letter or this scroll, as it would have pricked his thumb, as a blood drop would have fell on the inscription of the, well, pretty much signature piece, as the man in all black would have pronounced that he already signed it, and would have taken the scroll, saying that when the time comes, I'll call upon you for you to be my vengeance, my rider. He would have walked off, saying and telling Tatsumi to be safe and to watch yourself, because one day he'll come back to ditch in a favor. After what would happen, we would see that Tatsumi would have eventually came back to his dad's house, as eventually he would see that his dad was back, healthy as ever, doing push-ups and sword fighting in the back of the house, doing sword fighting and hitting the dummy, as he would have told his son to join him. As the next couple of days, his father would have been healthy as ever, even healthier than a man his age should be, kind of being suspicious, but Tatsumi just saying maybe the medicine worked, or maybe the man actually cured his father. Tatsumi would have been over the moon in the last couple years. The first time in years since his father was sick, he felt over the moon. He was happy. But one day that all got crashed down. We can switch that Tatsumi would have basically been going off to get some herbs and hanging out with his friends, him eventually coming back to his dad's house, as he would have seen that his dad was killed. His dad somehow slipped and his sword fell on him. He was sword fighting and he slipped, and I guess the sword fell up into the sky and landed straight into his chest, killing him. As Tatsumi would have been completely shocked by this, as the town detective would have analyzed that it was indeed an accident, as it was very, well, wacky, but yet again, it happened. Tatsumi would have been absolutely furious, thinking it was the man, because it's no way someone can have this bad of a luck. Someone can be so healthy and be thrown off the edge of earth, being thrown out of the edge of death, just at the brink of death, but died in such a brutal way. As eventually he would have ran away from the village, being absolutely filled with rage, and him eventually falling off of his horse, falling into a couple mud puddles in an open grass field, yelling out to the man, saying, "Where are you? Why have you done this to me?" The man coming out of the shadows and saying, "All I said was your father was cured. I never said that he would stay alive for long." As Tatsumi would have tried to yell at the man and try to grab him, but the man would have teleported and turned into a black mist, reappearing right behind Tatsumi. Tatsumi yelling at him, saying, "Who are you? Why are you doing this to me? Why did you do this to my father? If I knew this would happen, I would have never even given you," as man would have told him to shut up. It's time for him to tell him what he really did sign. "You signed over your soul, boy. Your soul is now mine. And you are now my rider. You are my champion. You will do my bidding." As the man would have disappeared, saying that he'll come for him in the future. And we get switched a few months later, after Tatsumi and his friends would have been sent off to find some sort of money to help the village, after the village would have started to go poor. Tatsumi would have been filled with rage, but also him using more of his childhood charm and kind of just trying to throw away the whole fact that his father was murdered, or technically killed himself, basically being filled with more of a cocky personality, just like original Tatsumi, but being a lot more like a well, pretty much Johnny Blaze personality being a lot more pushed towards that type of personality, being a lot more cocky, a lot more of a stunt devil, and a lot more adrenaline rushed and motivated. Eventually we could switch to, well, Tatsumi going to the capital, and him taking down the danger beast with minimal ease. Eventually he would have been told by the guards near coming from the capital that the capital's been very corrupt for years, and are you sure you want to go down there to find money? Most people that go there to find riches don't come back with any. They more or less come back or go into slavery, and probably go into lots of debt. As Tatsumi would have said that it doesn't really matter to me, and I'm determined to make as much money as possible to help my village and save them. As Tatsumi owed it to his village to save them, as Tatsumi always, throughout his life, has always wanted to save people, and always wanted to right that wrong of killing his father. His father would have probably never lived long enough for those next 3 weeks, but at least he had a nice life before he died. But at least he would have died not by some sort of demon bad luck. At least he would have died by his own sickness. But we would see that Tatsumi would have walked off, as eventually he would find himself at the capital. Him giving him the form of identification, and eventually him coming towards the Adventurers Guild and trying to rank up. Then eventually giving him the lowest rank since he just signed up, but he would eventually be super cocky, saying that, do you know me? How good I am with a sword? You better rank me up to fire, you better rank me up to a military objective. What are you talking about, man? As literally the man would have said, shut up, kid. You're not that guy. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy, pal. Get out of my face. Through this ruckus, we see that, well, a lion-esque girl, or a girl with blonde hair, would have walked up to him, saying that she was a general for the capital, and basically said that, well, she could get him in a position if she just needed a little bit of money. As Tatsumi would have stupidly given her all of his riches, and she would eventually walk off, as Tatsumi would have waited there for hours and hours and hours and hours. Eventually it'd be nighttime, and the man at the hub or the man at the Adventurers Guild saying that she's not coming back and she scammed your ass. So I might want to tell you to leave because we're closing. As Tatsumi would have walked away, as he would have been on the side of the street, being absolutely discouraged and distraught. But him eventually being picked up by a girl. As the girl would have picked him up, as the knights would have brought him into the capital, the tower, and basically it would be super nice off rip. Tatsumi would have told him his life story on how, not his life story, but he would have told him the basis of him coming here to find riches and fortune for his village to save them. As they would have all been kind of impressed, as they would have said, well, my boy, we can give you a little bit of a start off to get you back on your feet if you are okay with that. As Tatsumi would have said, yes, of course. Can I take any jobs you can give me? As we see that Tatsumi would have started off just going with the princess to shop and help her shop and carrying out her bags and boxes and stuff like that. But eventually, we can switch to the dark truth of this world and how corrupt this community can possibly be. That night, that fatal night, the story would have changed dramatically differently. We see that Tatsumi before that night, later on in the day after they would have gotten back from the capital or from the market, getting all the presents and boxes the princess or the maiden, not the princess, but basically the woman, the nobleman's daughter would have grabbed. We see that Tatsumi would have been chilling in his room later in the day, as he would have been approached by a dark, ominous presence. He would have looked over, seeing himself in the mirror, but seeing something behind him. He would have looked back, and him starting to yell, saying, "Who's there?" As he would have grabbed his sword, as a man would have grabbed him out of nowhere, pushing him into the ground, saying that it's your time to be my rider. There's a demon here in the capital, my son, and I need you to kill him. He's forsaking me for too long now. It's time for me to activate the spirit, your vengeance. You're filled with so much pain and rage deep in your heart, for the loss of your mother, your father, your siblings, your brother, your sister. You're filled with so much rage, pain, and anguish. It's almost delightful. So much pain feeling your vengeance. So much anger. But that anger, with that pain, makes you strong. As he would have tapped Tatsumi's head, as Tatsumi would have started to feel a burning sensation all over his body. And around this time, the night would have began. And the Night Raid would eventually find themselves into the, nobleman's estate. and basically would have started to kill the mom, the father, and eventually try to find the nobleman's daughter. As the guards would have tried to scurry her to the cabin and get her out of the way of Night Raid and try to keep her as safe as possible, but Night Raid would have been on her ass. We would see that Tatsumi would have jumped in, but it wouldn't be Tatsumi. As we see that Tatsumi would have became the spirit of vengeance. We get switched back to a flashback of Tatsumi's skin peeling off and his bones starting to show and fire starting to burn through his skin, as it would be a gruesome sight, just like Johnny Depp's, or just like, I guess, Nicolas Cage's acting in the movie. Literally, it would be his skin peeling off and blood shattering off his bones, and eventually Tatsumi would have been the Ghost Rider, the spirit of vengeance. Tatsumi would have looked over at Akame and basically would have said no. But him stopping in his tracks, as he would have known, the Ghost Rider having the ability to know people's worst sins and know if a person is bad or good, as he is the spirit of vengeance. He is right and wrong. He is justice. As he would have looked over to the girl and would have walked towards her, as he would have easily pin stared the guard that was trying to keep her safe and would have killed him in ease. Eventually, Akame's friend, the lion girl, and also Bulat shows up as well. After they would have shown up, we would see that Tatsumi would have looked towards the girl and would have grabbed her, saying that you have done horrible, horrendous things. As he would have kicked down the door, still having the girl by her arm, and would have looked over. As Tatsumi's inner soul would have seen through Ghost Rider's eyes for that split second, noticing his friends murdered, killed, broken. As his friend would have noticed Tatsumi's clothing and would have said, "Tatsumi, is that you?" As he would have been walked over and burnt out of the cages by his friend, as Tatsumi would have been there for his last moments, as he would have died. As Tatsumi would have looked at the girl saying, "This is you. This is what vengeance, this is what punishment awaits you. You have done horrendous, egregious things. And it's time for you to feel the pain of every soul you have wronged and every soul you have taken from." As he would have grabbed the girl and would have started to literally burn her soul, giving her the meanest penance there of ever. As she would have felt all the pain and suffering and misery and rage and torment and sadness and literal begging that people would have been doing and trying to tell her, begging for her mercy for years. As she would have been feeling every last ounce of pain and remorse and suffering she's ever inflicted on anybody in her life. Not even these people, just the commoners that made to her, making them feel like peasants, like they're nothing. As he would eventually been left a lifeless corpse. As her body would have been left there stagnated. As her eyes would have been burnt out and charred like she had no soul. But that is exactly what she didn't have. Her soul was burnt to a crisp and there was nothing left. She has gotten her damnation. She has gotten her punishment. She is forever lost, and she will never experience an afterlife. She is gone. As Tatsumi would have left her, and basically would have let go of her Ghost Rider, that is. This Ghost Rider would have looked over at, Night Raid, and would have started to judge their sins. Would have started to decide if they were a good or right or just person. As eventually, we see that Tatsumi would have been stopped in his tracks. So eventually, he would have looked around, as he would have noticed some sort of shadowy figure in the distance. Some sort of demon. So it would have been, let's just say a certain dark-hearted person. He would have faded out of existence, or would have basically scurried away, and Ghost Rider would have noticed that he was too far for him to even try to catch him, and he didn't want to waste his speed or his strength. He would have looked at Night Raid and would have said, "Take me," as he would have seen Night Raid as an opportunity. Eventually he would judge them. Eventually he would surely, but yet, use them for his own benefit. The Ghost Rider would have left, Tatsumi's body, and would have allowed him to be taken by Night Raid. And they would have taken him in the next couple days. We would see that Tatsumi would have woken up in his room, or woken up in a room in Night Raid, as he would have been confused on where he was. Not only about here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. And should I give him semi-control of Ghost Rider, be able to control hell flames even in daylight and even in his human form, or he should just be like an absolute beast at nighttime and just be an absolute just random Joe in daytime. But I'm probably gonna do the latter. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe. As always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.